So, Stan, I mean, let's start at the top. I mean, clearly there are a bunch of issues on your plate here this summer with this team. And look, you can tell me fair or unfair, but my view of one of your biggest problems is on most nights, I feel like you care more about winning and losing than your players. There just seems to be a gap there.
I don't think that's really true. I think we've got a pretty good group in that regard, in terms of competing and playing hard. So I don't really think that's the case. What we do have is we have a young group that I think a lot of times may not quite know what it's all about, Mike, and still has a lot to learn. And quite honestly, that's a big part of my job. And I think there's times where we're not as good as we should be. What we have been is a team that when things start going badly, even within games, we had a lot of great comebacks. Our guys have resilience, but we also get too comfortable when things go well. That makes it tough for us to put together great sustained play within a game or over the course of the season.
All right, but let's say you got a team of Warriors. There's one guy that, I'm sorry, but like, Stan, I mean, you've said it yourself. I mean, Drummond on nights, sometimes it just comes down to this dude doesn't try hard enough. You haven't been able to reach this kid, and it pretty much is going to define your time here if you're not able to. So what is it that you can't get through to this kid?
Well, first of all, I don't really know if that's true. Here's the thing, and I'm as guilty as anybody with this, but we tend to lose perspective on a guy like him because you see great talent. He hasn't turned 24 years old yet. There are several guys in this draft coming up that are older than he is. And so I'm the most guilty. I expect these huge things from him, and it doesn't happen on a consistent basis. And there's no question it has to. And you're absolutely right that it'll define my time here and that he's a guy we've got to be able to get through to and get him more consistent. But he's been better than what people give him credit for. Look, here's the thing. There's two things on Andre this year, Mike. Is number one, I've had a lot of people ask about his regression, and he didn't regress. If you look at his numbers over 36 minutes a game, he's down about a point in scoring, but his rebounds were up, his assists were up, his steals were up, his field goal percentage was up, his free throw percentage was up.
Oh, hold on. Now, Stan, wait a second.
No, but wait a minute.
Second. When a guy's shooting 39%.
I understand that, but let me make my point here. So he didn't regress, but two things happened, right? And the biggest one is this, that he went from being a guy on a rookie contract where those numbers and everything he did look good to being a guy on a max contract where we expect more and they're not good. And then the second thing that happened was around him, things weren't the same. And let's be honest, he and Reggie Jackson were one of the best, by the numbers, one of the best pick and roll combinations in the NBA. And Reggie, was hurt, missed 30 games, and was not nearly himself, and that hurt him. And so, look, Andre's got a lot to learn, and he has to be better. There's no question, and I think he would tell you that. But it's not quite the situation that people have painted it to be.
All right, well, let me throw some numbers back your way. You tell me if you even value them then. I mean, first of all, the free throws, it's an embarrassment, okay? And it compromises your ability to do your job. You can't play him in critical spots.
There's no question there.
Okay, so that, let's just leave that out. Stan, for instance, give me another top 10 rebounder in the league whose team is a better rebounding team when he's off the floor. Yeah. You guys get to almost 3.5% more rebounds when he's not out there.
Okay, and again, I do value that, and we look at it. Believe me, we look at that stuff all the time. But the part that people leave out a little bit about that, and I think is a little bit misleading, right, is Andre's out there against the frontline guys, which tend to be when people play big. When they go to the bench, a lot of teams play smaller, and so our bench is rebounding not against the same guys Andre is rebounding against. So I'm not so sure. Well, and actually, I'm pretty sure those numbers would not hold up if he was out of the game, let's say missing games, and we had to rebound against people's starters.
All right, so what do you do with the post play? Again, he's one of the least efficient post players in the league, and I know it drives you nuts. I know you're not going to tell me it doesn't. How many of these fadeaway hook shots instead of facing up and going at somebody? Stan, even when you dump the ball down to him, he's not going to make the shot, or he's going to get fouled, and he's going to brick the free throws.
Well, that's actually the problem, Mike. I think that, and Andre and I have talked about this, I really think the free throws it lead to even bigger problems, because I think Andre, where he could be really effective is catching the ball deeper rather than off the lane, and he could make moves stronger to the basket. But quite honestly, I don't even think it's conscious. I think it becomes a subconscious thing. Mike, he doesn't want to get fouled. And so he's not trying to seal as deep as he can. He's not trying to go to the basket as strong as he can and dunk on people. He's trying to get up the shots you're talking about quickly before he gets fouled. And look, I've seen in his work in practice, his post game has gotten better, but it doesn't translate to the game because of that, because of, I think, a subconscious fear of getting fouled. And so the free throws affect him and us in a lot of ways.
I think the biggest concern, at least for me watching the games, Stan, he's lost on pick and rolls a lot of nights. He sits there and he goes into the comfort zone. Point guards just dribble around him. I mean, you want him to be aggressive. You want him to be tenacious. And he's very lackadaisical. And there are certain nights, I mean, Stan, I've seen your head explode on the sideline. Certain nights, he's out there blindfolded.
I will say, Mike, and again, it's something Andre and I have talked about. I'll agree with you to the point that the biggest improvement he could make, right? The free throw shooting's tough. It is. I mean, and it's going to be tough all the time.
You can't win like this.
But the area where he could make the biggest jump and do it fairly quickly is to be a much more consistent defender. He's got the capabilities. He's got very quick feet. He's got good intelligence. He could make those adjustments and be a better defender if he would lock in every night. I think he's capable of doing it, and that's an area that we've got to get him to do a better job in, and he's got to do a better job in, because that, regardless of everything else on the offensive end, that's where he can have a huge impact on the game.
So Stan Van Gundy joining us. So Stan, for instance, ESPN report, obviously you're close to Tom Gores. He's close to Tom Gores. You've both gone to, again, ESPN reported, you both have gone in. You've talked about the other guy. It hasn't always been pretty. I know you delayed the exit meeting for a few days. It was in the paper. We needed a little more time. So where's the relationship then?
Oh, no, I think the relationship's really good. I mean, Andre, now we didn't delay the exit meeting. We just wanted more time. You're trying to get 15 guys through exit interviews in one day. You're doing these 20, 30-minute things. And with a couple of guys, we took different days. With a lot of our key guys, Reggie Jackson and Tobias Harris, Marcus Morris, Andre. So that had nothing. I mean, those things get played out in the media, but that was 4 or 5 different guys, because, you need more time to talk to those guys. And look, I've never had a complaint about Andre to Tom Gores. And, it's just been what I'm talking to you about. He needs to defend better and do these things. I think our relationship is good. But look, coach-player relationships are all about getting a result. And we need better results than we had this past year, which means I've got to do a better job. Andre's got to do a better job. I've got to do a better job coaching him to do a better job. That's what all this comes down to. So for instance, it kind of leads me into my next question is, you're going to sign KCP. You're going to sign him to an extension. You're going to be at or over the luxury tax. You're going to be locked in with this roster primarily, right? So the way I see it is, the roster you've built, you're not going to be better than 5th in the East. It's just kind of the lay of the land. So my question is, you got to make changes. I mean, Andre went out and said, oh, no, everything's great. I want the same group back. It can't be that. So are you committed to making some changes this summer? Well, when people ask those questions, that's a hard question to answer. I know it is. It's a hard question to answer only for this. Would we like to make changes this summer? Absolutely. Are we Is it a priority to be out trying to make changes? Absolutely. I mean, we need to make improvements. The part where I stop short of is saying we're committed to making changes because you need partners in those deals. We're not under the cap, as you said. So our way to make changes and to get better is through trades, and you can't do that unilaterally. And there's not guys on our roster that we're just going to dump for nothing. So you've got to search for deals that make your team better. But it's certainly a priority. I don't think we need to change, 7 or 8 guys, but
just one.
Well, I don't even know. No, I would say it could be a lot of different things, but we're certainly looking. I like our core of guys, but I'm with you on the fact that we need to get better. And we've thought since the day I came in here that the primary way for us in Detroit, with what had happened in the years before we got here, the primary way for us to get better was going to be through trades, and we hope, smart, lower budget free agent acquisitions. And I think overall we've done a pretty good job of that. And that's the way we have to continue to go. So yeah, we want to make some changes. It's not going to be wholesale change, but we want to make some changes. But we've got to find those deals.
All right, I'm going to get back to that in 1 second because I want to finish out kind of that deal. I mean, I don't even care about the names. That doesn't mean anything to me. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. There's no one here that's untouchable, right?
Correct.
You're willing to field phone calls on everybody.
Correct.
Okay, I can live with that. All right, so getting back to what you just said, because I think it's interesting, and we did a topic on it last week, and I don't know if you're going to be offended by this or not. It's immaterial. For me, I don't mind what Sam Hinkie did in Philly. I know a lot of people got offended by it. They were all, oh, my God, this guy never should have belonged in sports. Last week they raised a banner to the guy, and the owner thanks him. I'm asking you, did you have an issue with the way Hinkie tried to rebuild the 76ers? It'll lead me into another question.
I don't have an issue with it because I think that every organization is going to make decisions on how they want to try to do things, and that was the way they decided to go. So you can like or dislike the strategy. I will say this. I think Sam's a really smart guy, but I think the brilliance of the strategy has been overplayed. I mean, it's really not that hard if you decide you want to lose at historic levels for 4 or 5 years. It's not hard to pull off now. I mean, I can go out and lose every single night. That's an easy thing to do in this league. So to act like, wow, they really did something that's hard to do. Any team in any sport that decides their goal is to lose at historic levels for multiple years, 4 years now, that's an easy thing to do, Mike.
Oh, listen, but why does
I'm not saying it's a bad
do it?
Strategy. Well, here's the thing. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. Like, if I guess if you want the star power eventually to have a chance to win a championship,
you got to do it that way.
But the thing is, like, fans have to go to games every year, so. There's no guarantee. How many years, if you're a Philadelphia fan, do you want to be watching the worst team in the league?
Oh, you don't.
To have a chance. Well, he's on 4 years right now, Mike.
Right,
I mean,
now they're ready to go.
4 years. Well, no, you think they're going to contend next year?
I think that absolutely.
You're going to contend for a championship next year. I'll bet you.
Whoa, I didn't say that.
Want to bet me on that, I'll bet you.
I said they'll contend for a playoff spot. And
but so there's a lot of teams going to contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah, the difference is they're not luxury taxed out like you are.
No, but 4 years of historic losing.
It's worth it.
To contend for the 8th spot in the playoffs.
All right, let me ask you a question.
I mean.
All right, so let me ask you a question.
How quickly do you think they're going to be able to contend to make that 4 years of historic losing worth it?
They got a brighter future than you do.
Well, first of all, I don't buy that.
That's fine.
I mean, again, here's the thing. That has to translate. So, yeah, they can sell hope because they got all of these young guys. But first of all, Joel Embiid's got to prove that he can play more than 30 games in a year. He's played 30 games in 3 years, and, they've got Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons missed his entire year. Like, some of this stuff has to start to translate. And the second thing I'd ask you is, when has that approach worked?
What, tanking?
Well, who's won the championship coming from that?
Well, the Spurs tanked openly to get Duncan.
One time, one year.
Whoa.
No, but 1 year. 1 year, not multiple years.
Okay.
I mean, that's the
But
that's
the point I would
thing.
make
the
to you is
Spurs
this.
did tank to get Tim Duncan.
Right. The Celtics tanked for multiple years to set themselves up to have the assets to do what they did with the Big Three in 08.
But look, first of all, I know you're a Celtics fan. They weren't tanking. They just weren't getting it right.
They were horrific.
Yeah, but they weren't trying to tank.
Hey,
they just lost.
Stan, whether
there's
you
a
can't
difference
get it right
between
or
tanking,
whether you're doing it on
but
purpose.
there's a difference between tanking and just losing.
But here's my question then. Okay, let's say you don't believe in what they did. Stan, the way that you've chosen to do it, it leaves you in the worst place possible, which is the middle. You're in NBA purgatory where you don't have the picks high enough to get a star, and you're going to have warning track power in the East. How are you going to win a title when you're in the middle? You got no room.
Well, first of all, I think room at times gets overrated. I think the draft, like Philly is doing it, you can make a great case for that. I think you can make a case for room in certain cities and certain franchises. There's a lot of places in this league that room isn't going to get you anything, Mike.
No one's taking money to come to Detroit. Well, let's just be honest.
And so you have to, every organization has to have an approach that fits them. And it has to fit you in a lot of ways. It has to fit you in terms of your free agent approach. It has to fit you in terms of your organization and your fan base's stomach for losing and how many years that's going to take. So everybody goes about it in different ways. I will just say this, though. If you're in the mix, people say, well, you'll never be the top team and all of that. Well, look, we've learned a lot over the last 3 years. I mean, it's always ended up Cleveland and Golden State, but we've learned how much one or two injuries changes everything. And so San Antonio was in the mix, and then Kawhi goes down, and it's over. And so other teams can benefit from that stuff. So I think you keep building the best team you can build, period. And look, I think between ownership and us, we decided when we got here, it had been 5 years without the playoffs, that there certainly wasn't the stomach of doing a tear down even greater and trying to lose for another 5 years. I mean, again, that's easy. I mean, losing is easy. I mean, it's an easy thing to do if that's what you're trying to do, but I don't necessarily think it's the only way to go about things. And it's certainly not the way we're going to go about them here. And it really has not, to me, especially the multi-year losing.
Oh, it's great.
It's hard to get out of, and nobody's done it.
That's not true. We just talked about teams that have done it.
No, I'm talking about multi-year losing. All right. San Antonio did it for 1 year.
Okay, but the Cavaliers also did it too when LeBron left. They openly
sucked. What happened with San Antonio? Well, Cleveland got forced into it again. I mean,
know. Well, whether
their
you're
guy
forced
left.
or not,
but what I'm saying is they didn't try to tank. They tried to put the best team on the floor, and they got lucky. LeBron came back. They didn't. There wasn't a tanking strategy that led them back to having a team.
If you don't get to the top of the draft, you can't have a shot at the best. That's the whole deal.
Well, I understand that's what people have said, but it's. There have been instances where people haven't done it that way and have won.
Well, right. If you're the Lakers, yes, fair. Like if you're a destination city,
but look, it happened here, 2004. I mean,
it was the first time it had happened since like the 78 Sonics, where just a team did it.
Yeah, so I would say the 77 Blazers, too. There's the 75 Warriors. It happened more in those days.
50 years ago.
No, it happened more in those days, but it did happen here in 2004. And I would just say that it's happened more times than multi-year tanking has worked in this league.
All right, we're out of time. I can tell you've had a great time. I'd love to do this every week during the season. I'll even come up to your office. You can cuss me out. It'll be a great time.
I'll never do that. I enjoy the arguments.
Listen, I'd love to do it every week. It's your call. You can work it out with the team and work it out. But I can tell you've had a great time. I see it in your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Stan, we're out of time. I love it, though. And let's try to do it. Pistons are back on 97.1. Stan, I do appreciate it. A lot of teams in this city that they'll never send their coach in here to sit down and just talk like a human being. So I respect the hell out of that. Thank you. Yes, standing ovation, please. 97.1.